Hey, welcome to my video. So in this video, I'll be taking you through the steps you need to take to ensure that you successfully land yourself in Canada as an international student. So I'm just going to cut to the chase. So step number one is to figure out or decide what qualification or course you'd like to study. So this could be a diploma, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD program. So you decide which one you would like to take, and then you go to Google. You look around for schools in Canada that provide this qualification. So I'll give an example and say that I would like to study a Bachelor of Science in Physiotherapy, right? So then I'll go to Google and look for schools in Canada that provide this qualification. Okay, say I find this BSc at the University of Victoria. So I'll go into their page, and now I'm looking through their admission requirements. So typically, the admission requirements are mostly similar with the schools. So the first one being a GPA. So a GPA is an average or an aggregate of your previous academic experience. So it could be a high school diploma, or what we call in South Africa a matric, your last year of high school. If you've been to a post-secondary, if you've done post-secondary education, so it will be that GPA, right? So, okay, number one is a GPA. Number two, they often ask for a letter of intent, a motivational letter as to why you are a suitable candidate for this qualification. What are your plans? Like, how are you going to use this qualification? How is it going to impact the community and that sort of stuff? The next one will be what they call an IELTS, so IELTS. This is the official English exam that Canada recognizes to see your proficiency. Right, so in this exam, you can take it anywhere in the world, so even in your own country, and then bring it to Canada. So in this exam, you go through a writing test, a listening test, a speaking test, and a reading test. So they would often ask for those results. Some universities let it slide if you come from an English-speaking country, but not always, some, right? So GPA, letter of intent, English exam, what else do they need? Some conduct an exam, like an entry exam into the university, and let's say if you are studying a business program, you're studying a postgraduate business program, you would be required to write the GMAT or the GRE exam, but that's specifically for business, right? So you read about all these requirements, you make a list for yourself, and you start getting through them, preparing all your stuff for to enter in the school. But before you actually do an official application to this University of Victoria, you need to go to the IRCC. This is the Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, the official government page for immigration in Canada. This is the website you're going to go to for everything while you are a temporary resident in Canada, or let's say while you haven't gotten your Canadian citizenship. This is the website you're going to be visiting quite often. It's got everything from the different types of work permit, study visa, travel visa, all that sort of stuff. Right, so you go to the IRCC website, and you go to there's different categories. So there's one category about temporary residents, and then specifically you click onto international students, and they have a search bar for what you call a DLI, Designated Learning Institution. So this is a search bar to check if the institution that you're going to be going to, the school that you have decided on, is it in the list as a DLI or not. So it is important to pick a school that is a DLI, right? Why is it important? It's important because if your school is part of the DLI list, it means that post-graduation you may be eligible for what we call a postgraduate work permit. It's a type of open work permit. So if your school is not a DLI, you do not qualify. I think the government recognizes those schools as private institutions, right? So, okay, I'm looking for a BSc in physiotherapy. I found one from the University of Victoria. I'll go to the IRCC website. I look up, I'll go to the search bar. I put in University of Victoria. It pops up University of Victoria is a DLI. So now that's my go ahead to do an official application to the university. Okay, so I do my application. I pay the application fee, which ranges around $100 to $250. So I pay my application fee, and I wait like any other university application. They go through your paperwork and they see if you qualify. They conduct all the tests that they need to, and they reach out to you. Hey, you've been accepted for a BSc in physiotherapy at the University of Victoria. Okay, yeah, we're good to go. So now, how do I get to Canada? How do I get to Canada? So Canada recognizes you according to the paperwork that you have at hand. So they recognize you by a study permit and a study visa. 2 documents. One goes into your passport, which is a visa. One is an A4 page that you take around anywhere when you're going in and out of Canada, because that's your identity, right? So we need to apply for these things so that we land in Canada. We need these things. So again, which websites do we go to? We go to the IRCC. Now we look, how do we apply for a student permit or a study visa? So you click on the study permit, student visa, and they tell you the requirements, like the paperwork that they need from you. So typically this paperwork will be, first things first, a passport, right? A valid passport, proof of funds. The government of Canada needs to know and understand that you coming from your country and being and applying to be an international student, you are not going to be a burden to the system of Canada. You can afford your way around Canada, you can afford your fees, you can afford your cost of living, right? So they right now, when I was relocating to Canada in 2021, I was required to prove or to have funds that were, how much? 10,000 Canadian dollars. So, and I had a little over 18,000 Canadian dollars, just to show the government that, hey, I got more than 10,000. I can afford my life. I'm comfortable, you know, just making my application stronger than like a person that would show 10,000 on the dot, right? So, but over the years, things have changed, because now they're asking for about 20,000 Canadian dollars in your account to prove that you can support yourself in Canada. This 20,000 it's got nothing to do with your school fees. This is just like living costs. This is you showing that like I can afford to live in Canada. That's all. So yeah, coming to Canada as an international student is pretty expensive, because 20,000 alone, away from your fees, like you still have to pay your first semester fees away from the 20,000, right? Okay, but anyways, let's not stress. Let's go through the list and see how we can make it work. Like, your plan to be an international student could be a 5-year plan where you, in your country, maybe you come from a developing country like myself, you plan your finances and you work over the years to save money, but you know, like you know what's required from you. You make your list and you work through the list over the years. Eventually, you get to a place when you're ready to do the official application, because you've got the funds, you've got the paperwork, right? So let's relax and do proper planning for this move, okay? So going back to the list, so they would ask for a valid passport. They would ask for proof of funds. I need to mention as well that proof of funds, like, this video is for a single person, an unmarried person with no dependents, right? Because as soon as you talk about bringing dependents or a spouse, the proof of funds is more, right? Because it's 2 people, it's a family of 2. So that's something else. So what did I say? No, my thoughts are everywhere. That's just how I think, unfortunately. So it's a passport, it's proof of funds, and it's what they call biometrics, which is basically your fingerprint that you get to do in your country to run a background check on you. Canada needs to know that. So with biometrics, you get to do them in every country where you've lived more than 6 months. So prior to moving to Canada, I am born and raised in South Africa, so I had to do biometrics for South Africa because I've spent more than 6 months there. And then I lived in the US. I lived in the US for more than 6 months, so I had to do biometrics in the US via the FBI. So I had to produce 2 because I lived in 2 countries for more than 6 months. So that's going to apply to you as well. If you've traveled and lived in other places for more than 6 months, you provide fingerprint and that show your background check and prove to Canada that you are not a criminal, you haven't been getting up to no good, that sort of stuff, right? biometrics, and then a medical exam. So I guess it depends on the officer handling your application, because it seemed like it's not always that ask for a medical exam, because I did my application from the US and they didn't ask for a medical exam. But I learned that a bunch of my friends that I've made here in Canada, in university, got to do a medical exam. So I don't know what's the take on that, but it's one of the things that they may get you to do. And then the rest will be obviously your bank statements to prove the funds, which like they would often ask for your bank statements that from the past 4 months to 6 months, right? So check this out. The officer handling your application has a right to ask for your bank statement prior to 6 months. So they can ask, they'll be like, hey, okay, cool. I see you provided your bank statements for those 6 months. How about you give me the 2 other months, or like 8 months before or 9 months before. They're allowed to do that. So it will be good to keep the funds in your bank account untouched and like keep it consistent for about a year, because you don't know like the officer that's handling your application and what they're going to require from you, right? So that's the bit on the funds. So okay, they ask for all these things, and then what else? They may ask for a letter of intent as well, you explaining why you want to be an international student in Canada. And in that letter of intent, you need to convince them as much as you can that like you are coming to Canada for a great, amazing, good education, so that you go back home in your own country to apply the knowledge that you've learned. Like, so convincing them that you temporarily in Canada and you're going to leave after graduation. So you get to do a letter of intent, and then the rest of the documents is just like PDFs that you PDFs that you download from their page, RRCC page, and you fill it in, right? So you compile all those documents together, you do the RRCC application. So you've officially applied for a Canadian study permit and a visa altogether. And then you wait. So the wait period or the processing times, according to the country that you come from, according to the relationship your country has with Canada. So when I did my application in the year, I keep giving that example because I went through it and this is my reference. So when I did my application, I lived in the US, so my waiting time or the processing time was just 2 months, right? But I did check that if I had to apply from South Africa back then, if I did my application while I was home in South Africa, it would have been 7 months wait period. I don't know now, but this is information that's all on the website. It gives you a range as to how long it may take for them to get back to you. So you wait, and then they get back to you, and they say what? And they say your study permit has been approved. So they send a letter via email to you. So you get a letter from the government of Canada saying that good day, Mr. or Miss so and so. Your study permit has been approved. These are the following instructions that you need to, follow. So then, those instructions are normally them like instructing you to mail or post or what's another word? Mail, post, or I don't know. Send them your passport so that they can paste or stick in the visa. The visa is what goes into your passport. It's a little sticker that allows you to enter the country, right? So they tell you the instructions. You mail your passport to the office in Ottawa, which is the official capital city of Canada, Ottawa. Ottawa. So Ottawa, you send your passport there, and then after they finish up with it, they send it back to you. Now you're ready to travel to Canada. So then you travel from your country's airport to Canada. You get to Canada. When you get to Canada, you have to get through immigration. This is just them confirming a few some information about you, and this is where they issue your study permit. So that A4 piece of paper. The study permit and the visa actually look identical, but one is this little small thing and one is an A4 that you carry around with you when you're going in and out of Canada. This is when you're applying for a job in Canada. They ask you for your status. They will say, Are you eligible to work in Canada? Yes, I've got a study permit. If you applying for the free healthcare, are you eligible? Yes, I've got a study permit. Driver's license, are you eligible? Yes, I've got a study permit. So very important. So man, it takes so long to get through immigration. There's so many people there. So you need to plan your flights, your connecting flights accordingly. But we're going to get into that in another video. For now, let's look at the things that we need and how does an application as an international student look like. So holistically, altogether, right? So then you get through immigration, you get to the officer, and they conduct a mini interview just to confirm that all the information that you put in your application is true, and that's like you remember your story. You remember your story, and your story is legit. So they'd ask you, so what brings you here? I'm here as an international student. What are you going to be taking? I'm going to be taking a BSc in physiotherapy. Oh wait, what's your school's name? University of Victoria? Or what was the last a school that you went to back in your country? If you had lied in your resume, because you also have to produce a resume as part of your IRCC application. So if you had lied about some job, you may not remember. So that's when you have to say the University of Nelson Mandela, not me, right? I have to remember. And so I'm like, okay, cool. You're good to go. Stamp, you get your permit. And now you connect to the city you're going to be going to. Right, and you are an official international student in Canada. So if you're interested in the little tips and my takes on my experience in Canada through immigration, through the different culture that I got to experience here as a South African, stay tuned and make sure to watch my videos. And I'll be back yapping some more about immigration in the next video. Thank you.